So,
Hey,
okay,
can we hold off for a second? My dog's doing something here, and I gotta. Can we start over or something? Is that possible?
we just went live. Well, go ahead, go do what you have to do. It's going to take people a while to get in, and I'm going to tag you and just go ahead, do what you got to do.
Okay, okay.
Yeah, that's not a problem at all. Go take care of your business. Got to give a chance for people to log in. And in the meantime, I can tag Brother Frank right here, Brother Dave Frank. And okay, we got people coming in already. Good. We'll give it a minute for people to come in. In the meantime, let me tag. Do, 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 do. Happy Solution Sunday, people. Happy Solution Sunday. How come it's not letting me tag? What in the world? Brother David back in a minute. Let's see. This, that, the other, edit, save, do. No, I want to do a tag. How do I tag? How do I tag? It's not. Okay. Hey, Dee Dee and Mark. People starting to come in. I want to tag you in this, or what you can do is if are you online? Hey, can you hear me?
Are you talking to me?
Yeah, yeah. Are you online? What you can do, you can share it to your page if you want. So we're already on. Folks are coming in. Justin wants to know what we're talking about. We're going to talk about onevoicenow.org, direct democracy. We're going to talk about freeing people, voting for yourself. Uh, Although my screen just freed up.
Did I do something?
I don't know what happened. I just saw the screen go blank. Well, this is kind of how it goes. Where's my
Is
phone?
that better? Am I back on now?
No, I don't think it was you. I think something weird just happened. Actually, you know what? It might be my browser. Maybe my browser hung up. Let me restart my browser. It can sometimes get interesting. Let me do this. If you get kicked off, just hang on. I'll be right back. This is just the internet and always having trouble. I'm not sure what happened. Yeah, browser's not responding at all. So,
You want to start over?
well, yeah, actually, it looks like I'm trying to kill the window now, and we'll start over. No, you can stay there. It should restart. I'm actually going to look and see if probably are live. Yeah, we are.
Hi, everyone. I think we lost our host. Can anybody hear me? Okay, I think I'm going to hang up and try again. That's the plan. Okay. See ya.
Can you hear me? There we go. There we go. All right. There we go. Now we might be okay. Are you there?
I'm here.
All right. There we go. Much better. Woo. Let's see.
Oh, technology, man. When it works, it's great.
So the funny thing is, technology, amazing thing when we have control over it. We don't have control over it, all types of bad things.
That's right.
Yeah. Okay,
Can you hear
back feedback? Now, is that better? Can you hear me?
I'm good.
All right. I'm good. There we go. I had a feedback. Now it's good. I think. All right,
this is turning into a comedy show, and it's supposed to be about taking back and fixing America. Now, come on. So,
but that is a comedy show. That is a comedy show, taking America back from whatever owns it, whatever has purchased it. It is definitely a comedy show. But I tell you, when I look around and I look at what people believe anymore, away.
Yeah. Yeah. How can they not know that this is organized crime? How can they not know that? I mean, how can they not know that there are two organized crime families fighting over $4 trillion a year? And people still believe it's about health care or the environment or education or, it's not about any of that. No. It's about $4 trillion. That's all. So anyway, I'm sorry, I'm jumping ahead of the program. I just
go right ahead. Go tell me what it's about, because that's the whole point. So I'm gonna call this Solution Sunday. That's the whole point. Like, let's talk about the problem and go for it.
Good. I like that. Solution Sunday.
Solution Sunday. We can complain and laugh and have all the fun we want, but at the end of the day, at a certain point in time on a Sunday, we gotta come up with solutions.
Yeah, and we better find some solutions fast, because there are a lot of people suffering in the world, in America, in our communities, and we're waiting for the same people that have caused this mess to fix this mess. And it's and it's not going to happen. And our only alternative was given to us by our founding fathers. And I'm not talking about the Constitution. I'm talking about the Bill of Rights. And in the Bill of Rights, it said, we were told through time, through 250 years, that it's not only our right, but our duty to change the system when it gets this bad. And people forget, our founders were tax protesters. They stood up against being stolen from. And over the last 250 years, we're now, what the latest figures are, we're now working like 190 days out of 365 days to pay taxes. So, we now work more for the government than we do ourselves and our families. And where, this is modern day slavery. That's all it is. They take what we get, and we're supposed to live on 40 cents on the dollar and just appreciate the fact that America is so great. And it is great, but the government sucks. And the founders told us in the Declaration of Independence, it's not only our right, but our duty to change the system, just like they did. And that's what One Voice Now is. It's a 21st century technological democracy where we the people start deciding, the role the federal government's going to play in our lives and not play in our lives, the role the state is going to play, and the role those city councilmen and the mayor plays. But without communication, we can't do any of this. And we now have the communication technology to give each and every person in America a real and equal voice on the issues affecting their lives. And that's what Dr. King was all about. He was about standing up together with a plan, and his plan was, hey, if you got a voice, everybody should have a voice. Well, why should 545 people in Washington have a voice and not 320 million? Or why should 150 in state capitals have a voice and not 6 million in Indiana? And why should 9 idiots on the city council and a mayor have a voice, and we have 267,000 people here? So when you boil it all down, it's just a brain dead system. That's why nothing works. Education's a mess. Environment's a mess. Healthcare is a mess. The judicial system is corrupt and a mess, just like the penal system. And, not one person has the answer. Bernie doesn't have it, or Trump doesn't have it, or none of these people have it. There's not one brain cell that can know as much as all the others put together. And what One Voice Now does is it puts those brain cells together, community by community. And that's why, we need to stand up with the solution. And One Voice Now is the solution. Like you were saying earlier, we can talk about the problems. I mean, that's all social media is being used for anymore. Talking about, police brutality and political corruption, and the environment's terrible and education's terrible. It is all terrible because we have a broken, corrupt system where our representatives are not representing we the people. I'm 70 years old. I've never been asked my opinion. I have no voice. I have no representation. But with One Voice Now, everybody can have a voice, an equal voice. It doesn't matter what color you are, if you're rich, if you're poor, what nationality, if you're a quadriplegic, everybody can have a voice. And this is the plan. I hope everybody watching this listens to it and checks out our website. It's at onevoicenow.org. I know a lot of followers of Gerard are people that believe in direct democracy. We've never had direct democracy. No, we've never had any democracy. It could not have existed without today's technology. And we can now have direct democracy where you, the people, raise the issues. You, the people, debate the issues. You, the people, vote on the issues. That's what One Voice Now is. So we can do this, but, Gerard and I can't do this alone. We need everybody hopping on and sharing one idea. Whatever your issue is, everybody's got an issue. Education, healthcare, environment, whatever it is, everybody's got an issue. But until you put your issues down and you pick up the tool that you need in your community to get busy resolving your issue, because the politicians aren't going to do it. Remember, you only bribe a judge, a juror, or a politician to make the wrong decisions. That's why Jesus said it'll be the truth that'll make us free. And these guys are being paid to tell lies. That's what it is. That's why nothing works. But the plan is very simple. Am I talking too much, Gerard? It seems like I'm on a roll.
No, brother, go on. I disagree with you. I can't find it. I sit here and I run my mouth and I get sick of hearing myself talk. I'm glad to listen to you and your frustration. I think you're definitely demonstrating the issues that we have very clearly. You're demonstrating that usually it's fear, which is why people don't want to move forward, or maybe just they don't accept how bad the system actually is. I love the fact that you're dropping the solution like, this is our system was designed to fail, but we actually can fix it. There's software in place. There's the knowledge that it's broken. None of I call them 2020s, but the system's not going to be fixed from within.
No.
People are curious about direct democracy. I think it puts fear in some people because they're scared of mob rule. And when
let's hold it right there for a second. Let's just stop right there, because I agree with you 1,000%. But that mob rule term has been pretty bastardized over the years. Somebody 250 years ago uttered mob rule. Well, it was the elite back then. And it wasn't all of the founders that said that, and it wasn't all of the founders that believed that. It was the elite back then because they didn't want the average person, that mob, that ignorant mob that knows absolutely nothing. They didn't want them to have a voice. But the truth is, 250 years ago, they didn't have the technology to even build a democracy. Their perception of a democracy wasn't, hey, why don't we let the people watch issues affecting their lives over the TV, internet, and radio and vote by phone? They didn't even know those words back then.
Right.
They did the best they could for the world that they lived in, but they knew that absolute power was going to corrupt the system. They knew it. That's what they were telling us. And it
by
has.
intent. Yeah, I mean, by intent. I mean, the way I view it, and I could be wrong, but I think the whole representative model of government was designed to be broken, right? It's designed as a single point of failure to where you don't have to bribe 370 million.
535 people in Washington.
Exactly.
Another 10 with the Supreme Court. That's all. That
But it's a dollar figure.
Yeah.
It's a dollar figure. I mean, if you know people who want power are always bribable, they always have a price, and you print the money, and there's only 500 people, then it was just a matter of time to where they could buy the entire system. And
they have.
Yeah, they don't have to buy every politician. All they had to buy the system, all they have to do is buy enough to get the votes the way they want them to. And so I think the whole sovereignty movement is right in line with direct democracy, because that's what you're basically doing. You're going back to a place where you decide your own future as opposed to them. And how I kind of address the mob rule is, I'll be honest with you, I don't think it will be necessarily mob rule. I think people really, for the most part, all agree they want to be left alone. They want to live their own lives. But now, we're being ruled by a mob. We're being ruled by an elite mob. We're just not ruled by, like you said, us, the ignorant mob. And I'll throw something else out there at you, and I'll shut up. But I was thinking about this whole secret ballot nonsense. I think about these things, Brother Dave, and I'm trying to figure out who are these people who want a secret ballot, right? Because they sell it to us that it's for our privacy, right? Who you vote for. You don't want other people to know who you vote for. I drive around all day. I see Clinton Trump's bumper stickers and MAGA and Bernie, and I just see a whole bunch of people who are just pleased and proud as punch. Everybody I know who they voted for. I'm trying to figure out, who are all these people that believe secret ballots are for people's privacy where nothing's private? There's no privacy. They know when you shop for your underwear. They know the size of your underwear. They know, they know everything about your kids. There's absolutely no privacy, and people still believe that secret ballots are for privacy. And to me, I see it as, it actually makes sense that if you don't know who anyone voted for, then no vote really has to be valid, right? They can
absolutely
election. If you don't know, if it's not public record who everybody voted for, they don't actually ever have to count anything, because there's no way you can audit that.
Yeah. And the reality is they don't want transparency, because if there's transparency, that's the only way that you can get accountability. And they don't want to be accountable, because we're now waking up to the fact that these idiots have committed a crime called identity theft, which would make any of us guilty if we had done it. But when you put 22 trillion on somebody else's credit card, that's identity theft. That's identity theft. And 22 trillion, people don't realize 22 trillion is 22 million. It's a number that does not exist anywhere other than maybe grains of sand on the beach. Maybe. Yeah. And these idiots have bankrupted the greatest country on the planet. And we've got to stand up together and be able to say, you know what? You guys are the financially most irresponsible people, and we can no longer give you our money. But the way that you do that is you stand together. And the way that you stand together is through One Voice Now. One Voice Now. See, it's hard to bring people together right now unless they're ready to riot like they are in other countries and some places in America, because after a while, what happens is that all the money ends up at the top. That's what top-down systems do. They always benefit the people at the top. And after a while, the people at the bottom become revolted. And what they do is they get involved in a thing called a revolution. But people don't realize that a revolution is one complete turn, and you're right back where you started. And that's where America.
I love how you said that. Yeah.
America is right now. We had a violent revolution, and we know that violence only begets violence. So, we're right back where we started, and now we have a choice to make. Do we want to have a violent revolution that will just destroy humanity as we know it now? It'll be over with. Or do we want to use communication technology to have an evolution where humanity evolves into adulthood, where we, the people, decide what kind of world we want to live in? The old system is you got 545 adults in Washington, you got 150 in state capitals, you got 9 downtown, and the question is, if they're the adults, what the hell are we? We're the children. We got to hand over 60% of our paycheck because we aren't responsible enough to spend it on things we maybe need or care about or want to help somebody else with it. But we aren't, so the system has gone wild. And what we've got to do is realize that the way that you take America back is not from the top down. It's from the ground up. Everything that God gives us that's good for us always comes from the ground up. And that's why we need one voice now, because what we're going to do, we have to have a plan. Like God said, my people will perish without knowledge. Well, this is the plan. It's very simple. It's not about Dave Frank at all. You don't even need me. I'm just sharing this plan. It's your plan now. I want you to make it your plan, Gerard. You're doing a lot of great work. You're explaining to people how the system is broken. They know it now. Now give them a solution. Now give them one voice. Now give them the blueprint for direct democracy. And
that's why you're here. I mean, that's why you're here to kind of discuss it. But I don't want it to be Gerard's plan. No.
It's everybody's plan.
It's everybody's plan. That's the whole.
That's right. And you're everybody.
And direct democracy is you decide for yourself.
That's right. That's right. You have to have tools to do it. You have to have tools if you're going to do it.
And the interesting part to me, which is why I appreciate you taking the time and have this discussion, is that the tool is there. So it's not even like they need to go build anything. We already have the tool in place to hand back to the people in the diapers their adulthood to actually decide. And correct me if I'm wrong. If we go back, how we ended up in this mess is we were farmers, right? We couldn't ride to DC. So not everybody had the chance to get on a horse, and not everybody wanted to be bothered with part-time governing and riding to Washington to vote on something. They had farms to run. They had families to take care of. And so you elected representatives to get on their horses and ride to DC and vote in your stead. And since then, we've had the teletype, we've had fax machines, we've had telephones, we've had computers, we've got internet. We have made so many technological evolutions where we could have taken back the power of the people to actually make their own decisions. And at every turn, it's refused. And so now that we're in a space where we do online banking, like you trust your retirement, you trust bank accounts to this online process, it's ridiculous, the concept that we wouldn't trust a vote to it.
Well, that's because you haven't presented an alternative. And that's what has to happen. You're right. All the technology is here, but until you put the components together, you won't have a vehicle. And, just like a car has an engine, a body, and a transmission, that's what One Voice Now is. It's putting the components together. But people have to realize you don't fix America from the top down. You fix it from the ground up. And all we're doing is we're giving everybody in every community around the country and hopefully around the world the blueprint that they need to start having their own communication system. And just like a car has an engine and body and a transmission, this is where you're going to be able to watch issues over the TV. They'll live stream over the radio and the internet, and then you'll vote by phone. So you have the TV, radio, and internet, and then you have the phone, and then you have the computer that receives the call and makes sure everybody gets only one vote. And that's the way it works. That's the vehicle. This vehicle can take millions of people to the poll every day without starting one single car. But if you don't put the components together and you don't start it in the right place, it can't work. all you have is chaos. We're already using all the components. I mean, everybody's using the components. You know, you got
Right.
Dancing with the Stars we're voting on, and American Idol, and CNN and Fox. But that's because it's all over the place. What we've got to do is bring it down to a local level, and this is the plan. And then I don't know how much time we have left, but let me just share the plan so that if anybody has any questions, maybe they can let us know. Back in 1969, public broadcasting started, and America was excited because we thought it was going to be a TV station that'll actually broadcast the public. The federal government started funding it immediately to make sure that that didn't happen. Consequently, our local public broadcasting stations are being used for Antique Roadshow and British soap operas and 60s music and just silly stuff. So we need to stand up like Martin Luther King did with a plan for America. And what we want to do is stand up with One Voice Now. It's very simple. It tells you exactly what we want. Everybody wants One Voice Now. And we demand that we change the format of our local public broadcasting stations to all local issues. And so that the people in your community can get busy coming up with ideas to make education better, environment, healthcare, infrastructure, whatever it is. You'll present your ideas to the community over the TV. It'll simulcast over the radio and live stream over the internet. We'll debate these ideas because we want people to be educated on these different ideas. We'll video that and present that over our local public broadcasting station, our new local Issues TV, radio, and internet channel. And then, just like we're voting on American Idol, you'll be able to vote. All you'll do is call a local number. It'll go into a community database. It will have your ID number and PIN number. Ask you what issue number you'd like to vote on. Press 1 for yes, 2 for no. Count your vote. Block you out if you try and vote again. And we can now have decisions the way our founders really wanted them to be made, of the people, by the people, and for the people. And the majority of people voting are not the mob. That you are absolutely right. The mob is in Washington. Organized crime not that long ago was known as the mob. That's who's running America now.
Right.
But if you want, back in the 60s, they started this term minority. All of a sudden, they started labeling people with this term minority. Well, God has no minor children. Everybody just as important as one another. And we got to get back to the real definition of minority, and that's the other side of a majority. So, and in direct democracy or One Voice Now, whatever you want to call it, the majority and the minority always changes, because not everybody feels the same way about the issues. Everybody's different. But these are the tools that people need in their communities. Once again, it's called One Voice Now. Our website is onevoicenow.org, ONE voicenow.org. Hope you check it out. Hope you share the hell out of it, because we do not have much time, ladies and gentlemen. If they decide to turn off the electric in our communities, and now we're on the stupid grid that we should have never been on, but we are, thanks to the idiots in Washington and state capitals and downtown. If they turn off the electricity, we're toast. That's why we've got to hurry up, and we got to get busy, and we got to get One Voice Now out there so that the activists in America can go, hey, wait a minute, I don't have to worry about Washington, D.C., and I don't have to worry about my state capital. All I've got to do is start promoting the blueprint on One Voice Now, where we change the format of our local public broadcasting station to all local issues. We build a simple database for voting, and we're ready to go. And it's really that simple. So I hope everybody likes it. If you need to get in touch with me, my name is David Frank, and my phone number is 574-876-7306. Give me a call if there's any questions on it, if there's anything I can do to help you get it started in your community. We need coalitions. People say, hey, we need a militia in every community. Right now, we need a coalition in every community that demands one voice now. You can be the greatest surgeon in the world, and if you don't have tools, your patient's going to die. And right now in our communities, we have no tools. One voice now is the tool that we need to get people interconnected and working and changing America from the ground up.
Let's go through kind of some of the plan. I know John had a question there. I want to kind of look at the room and see questions coming in. So in terms of the plan, what you're describing is that at the local level, start using onevoicenow.org to start making decisions for whatever. I mean, in terms of, you can use it for your township, you can use it for local government, you can use it for state government. But the whole point is start converting and getting people used to voting for themselves, right? Getting people used to actually making their own decisions at the local level.
Absolutely.
And once they realize how well the system works, and that, yeah, they can actually take their diaper off and stop outsourcing to representatives, that it can be pushed up to a state or a federal level. And I like that approach. I wanted to clarify because John had that question. So if I'm not mistaken, that's what you're promoting, that not using this at a federal level initially, because we probably don't have buy-in from the people, but start using it at the local level. And that go viral. I think if we actually listen to what you're saying, and we started promoting this at our township, at our local government levels, even for what, school and college. I mean, there are government organizations all throughout in different areas where you could utilize a voting tool such as this. Is one, it would build robustness in the system. I guess in the back of my mind, sometimes I wonder if we have time. I think that they're really up to some very things, but the reality is we really don't have a whole lot of choices here, right? We can sit around and we can continue to yell and scream and be upset at the system and wait for a revolution to happen, because that is the default, right? The default is continuing to push people into lower and lower types of oppression, to continue to roll out laws that nobody wants. It's like I was thinking about the other day in terms of mass incarceration. If you have to mass incarcerate your citizens, it means in mass they don't want the laws. They don't agree with the laws. And so that's not a law. That's criminal activity. You're not representing the people. You're representing something else. And it's usually a corporation or one of those families that tends to run a lot of things. But so if I'm not mistaken, that's kind of the plan. And I like the idea and I like the approach. I like doing something as opposed to doing nothing and waiting for it to collapse. Like you said, when the power goes out, then you're really going to find out what Americans are made of. And I do everything I can, David, to teach people how to grow food. I do everything I can to teach people how to kind of pull up their bootstraps and go back to learning how to take care of themselves and to off-grid, so they can actually stand up to a government that owns all the infrastructure that's been bought and bribed by international parties and corporations we don't even know. But the reality is we're not there. No. And if the power goes off tomorrow, we're toast. We're going to have some big problems.
Yeah. And that's why we've got to be proactive right now. We can't sit here like they did back in Germany, where the people sat there and watched the government, just sort of take over everything in everybody's lives. I mean, we have to learn from history. And let me mention this to John, who's commenting here real quick.
John's a local revolutionary, by the way. So I just want to say, John's a big guy, but he's our local.
Stuff I don't understand what his goal is, but I do watch his stuff, and let me just say this: it's exactly, you said something like this is the same system that we have. No, it's not. It's the exact opposite, matter of fact, because under our present system, we vote for somebody to misrepresent us. And under One Voice Now, we will be voting on issues that we are representing ourselves, because there aren't two people that feel the same way about all the issues in America. I don't think they exist. And so nobody can represent you. It's impossible. They did the best they could back in the middle of the 1700s. They told us to change the system. They knew that absolute power was going to corrupt absolutely, because they came from it and they knew it. and we need to know it. I mean, for God's sakes, we've got history that, all you got to do is learn from history. And one thing we know, we can't keep doing the same idiotic things and expecting different results. It can't happen. And God has dropped this amazing communication technology in our laps, and for us not to use it is just stupid, because like you said, Gerard, it's being used on us like crazy. I mean, you couldn't possibly commit a crime today without getting caught, I don't think. I mean, they know everybody you talk to and everywhere you went, and they know what you've been smoking and what you haven't been smoking, and they know everything. And but the bottom line, let me finish with this on the thought. But the bottom line, and you guys were talking about this earlier, people have to remember what a law was before it became a law. It was called a bill. And the reason it's called a bill is because when they want to pass these into laws so that we can be billed. That's why our taxes are so high. Those are all our laws are all punishments now, whether they send you to jail or fine you or send you to jail or fine you, or whatever. But you have to remember who made the laws, and the people the profession that made the laws were the lawyers. They were the lawmakers. And if you look at all those people in prison, and most of them are there for nonviolent offenses, if you look at all those people, you know who won on every one of those failures for those people? The lawyers.
The lawyers and judges.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
And judges, and that's what a judge is, nothing but a lawyer disguised with a robe. And this judicial system does not work for us. I mean, it hasn't worked for a long time, but we can fix this, but it has to be fixed from the ground up. It's got to be fixed community by community. There are people in your community right now that could raise issues pertaining to the judicial system or the penal system, and you can debate it in your community. You can vote on it. You can implement it. And you can change your community. And when you find things that work in your community, what you'll do is you'll share that information with 999 other communities around the country. And when they find things, they'll share it with you, and we'll start rebuilding America from the ground up, because that's the only way it's going to work. All top-down systems fail. All republics fail. Everyone, you cannot think of one that made it, because absolute power corrupts. Hey, they get to make the laws, they collect the taxes, and they spend the money. So what do you think is going to happen? What do you think?
It always goes the same way. It always goes the same way, right? So we keep making the same mistakes, and we're expecting to have a different result. Like we keep the same behavior of having top-down talking points, politicians, solutions. And this is what you started off saying, right, is when you trust the people who made the problem, when you trust the system that made the problem, when you trust the parties that made the problem to give you a solution for the problem, then, I try to be nice, but you're a fool.
Right. They
didn't make the laws because nobody was watching. They made the laws because it makes money, right? Like, the laws, for the most part, they're making industries out of problems, and you expect the problem to go away, and it's not going to go away, So I do love the approach. I love the fact that it starts at a local level and bubbles up from there. I honestly think it will bring about a lot of distrust. Voting system which is what we really do need. Like you said, the lawyers, liars, and the judges are lawyers in robes. And
they're the only profession that can legally lie. They're the only profession that can legally. I mean, think about it. How many times have you seen a lawyer stand in front of all the public and say, "My client's innocent," before the trial even starts? I mean, if you did that, you'd be lying to the whole country. But they're the only profession that I mean, how many lawyers do you think take on cases that they know their client's absolutely guilty?
Yeah. What's right? About yeah. And they're
going to defend them. They're going to defend them.
It's
for the money.
Right. It's a completely unethical form of employment where you get paid the better you learn how to lie. And if you learn how to do it very, very well, and you're very charismatic and convincing at it, you can become a judge or a politician.
That's right.
Why you can't have these handed down solutions, because these people are fantastic at fooling you. And it's why part of I'm not, I'm so done with the voting system that
Hmm.
like I said, most people here know me. I'm not going to vote. I honestly don't care who the president is. I don't care who's in Congress, and I don't care who's in the Senate, because all of those systems are based in forms of oppression.
That's right.
America, they never respect the Bill of Rights. Why in the world would I continue to vote for a system that doesn't even view me as a human adult to make my own decisions, right? So I think that at the federal level, you'll never get direct democracy, because they're not going to bite the hand that feeds them, right? They're not going to give up their jobs to let you make your own decisions, because they get paid to make the decisions for you. They get paid to get you to be complicit, to give that manufacturer consent so they continue to make the decisions for you. So they're not going to do it. We have to do it at our level. And what's the risk is really, if we don't do anything, we'll do what you said, which is we will go through another turn. I like how you revolution. It's just another turn. And I don't know if John is still there, but we got a couple revolutionaries here. But violence begets violence, right?
That's right. That's right.
That solution over and over and over and over and over. Yeah. At a certain point in time, we have to move forward enough to realize that we'll never escape a system that's based in force. Right? Like, yep. All laws are based in force. They're not based in intellectual, consensual, universal solutions. They're based in force. If there are enough people who get together and vote away your rights, and pull that lever, which is one of the most violent actions you can do, there'll be people with guns will show up at your door to either take you away to slavery, another form of slavery, enslavement, and put you in a cage, or they find
you. Right.
Whether it's financial force, it's physical force, or it's enslavement. And that is not a sentient, it's not an evolved system. And this is why I think evolutions always breed just more tyranny and oppression, because we've never evolved to where we start making solutions with our brain, solutions that are all inclusive. And that's why I really like it. I'm going through the comments now. I want to make sure that we're engaged with the room also. And they're talking about censorship. And so I said that's an interesting point, like in terms of Facebook and censorship and social media. And those are issues that can be raised, on websites like this. OneVoiceNow.org is raising the issue. Well, it left up to government. They're going to take over the power of controlling how people think through social media. And that's what they've been doing with the Global Alliance, the NATO organization. Or you can raise it as an issue where you want free speech in all social media, and that people decide, and then that happens. But the interesting part is that you're allowed to have public discourse without censorship, right? You're allowed to have your videos and your content, your facts and information, and have an open discussion, as opposed to a guided discussion on social media, or a censored discussion, or handed down talking points from politicians who actually don't want anything to change.
Absolutely. That's absolutely right. And, that's why it's so important that people realize those politicians don't have the answers. I mean, think of the word itself, politics. Poly means many, ticks are bloodsuckers. I mean, what do you expect from a profession like that, other than to have your money stolen or you thrown in a cage? I mean, that's where we're at now. And excuse me, my dogs need me.
Yeah, no, take your time. I'm just looking at the comments. There are a lot of good comments here, which is, Sandy's talking about that's the whole reason people are afraid of what they're doing to people now. It's caging, right? So people, I think, Sandy, they don't view it from all perspectives, right? It's bad when you put immigrants in a cage. Okay, when you take kids in foster care and put them in a new home, and it's okay when we take kids under the age of 26 and put them in prison for having a plant and things like that, right? Like, we're putting in people in cages because stealing someone's freedom is a great way to force them to comply. Once again,
absolutely,
It's a revolution. It's force. It is a violation. You are violating someone if you are using force to force them to do something, and they're peaceful. Which is, I'm glad that you put it that way as well. It's most people in American prisons, they didn't hurt anybody. Most people in American prisons, they actually didn't do anything violent. They have no reason to be in a cage because they're not monsters. They're not animals. We have some. And really, if and that's another issue, in terms of voting on, what is nonviolent crime? And if there is any nonviolent crime, what is the punishment? And should it be physical, where you put someone physically in a cage and you make a monster out of them because you put them with other monsters? Things like that, simple and stupid things. Like I follow the Venus Project. I like a guy by the name of Jacques Fresco, who unfortunately passed away, I think, a couple of years ago. But he says things like, we do dumb things. We're not. It's the same way we're not using, onevoicenow.org and evolving how we use technology to change our world, or evolving government with direct democracy, giving rights back to the people. We don't use technology to do smart things. Like, why are police still chasing people who are speeding? Why do we allocate a resource and put them to sit at stoplights and give people tickets who don't stop at the stoplight? We have cameras that can do that. Every stoplight in America, for the most part, you look up, or at least around here, there are at least 5 or 6 cameras looking back at you. We can use technology to solve problems. Instead, I'd rather have police chasing down violent criminals than have police chasing and knocking on people's door and putting into prison political prisoners, as well as people who are growing plants that's none of my business, or people speeding through speeding tickets. So I think there are things like that. But you had a whole bunch of things. When you say things, brother, you say a lot of things. I'm trying to address all of them, but my point is we can start talking about the wasted resources, and we are wasting resources.
And we're paying for those wasted resources. And that's why we're all broke too. I mean, it's all, the things that you described, going too fast or not stop, it's all about making money. It's all how much, like a speeding ticket here is like $250. Now a cop goes out, and gives a couple of those in a day. He not only paid for himself, he made money for the department. Yeah. So, the whole thing is not what we the people want, because we the people have never been asked. But we're forced to pay for all of this stuff, whether it be, a police department that, is no longer, they're no longer peace officers. Now they're law enforcement officers. That's what they had in Germany. We're paying for failing schools. We're paying for the healthcare in our communities that, some corporation owns and is overcharging us so that the CEO can make himself $10 million a year. There are better ways to deal with these issues in our community. Jesus said 2,000 years ago that there will be a day where the last will be first and the first will be last. That's what we're trying to do now. And that's exactly what One Voice Now does. Instead of, 9 average citizens telling, our whole community the way things are going to be, our whole community is going to tell 9 average citizens what we want and how you're going to represent it. And it's really that simple. But all we need is a tool. We invest all this tax money and all these war tools, these weapons of mass destruction. We can't spend enough on that to kill innocent children and women and men. That's good, because those kids someday might grow up and want to come over here and be do something bad. I'm not going to use the T word, because who knows who's listening, right? I can't even use it anymore because they're listening to everything. But my point is, there's plenty of money, there's plenty of knowledge, there's plenty of everything. God has given us this amazing planet. There's plenty of food for everybody. But as long as we allow the top people to decide the rules of the game, they can't lose, we can't win. And that's why we need One Voice Now, because it allows the last to be first and the first to be last. And Jesus said to seek the truth. Those people on the city council, they don't represent me, and they don't represent you. They represent a political machine that we can't even see. And they're told how to vote. It's
Right.
a done deal.
They represent their retirement, right? They represent their career. They're just doing a job, and the job is to make as much money as they can for their party to keep their party in power. And it's a game. It's literally a game of lying to people and getting as much money from corporations as you can, passing laws, taking people's rights to keep your party in power. And if they do their job well, they get a great retirement. I mean, a lot of them come up millionaires from the city level all the way up to certainly the federal level. So this is why I think we do need a paradigm shift. And I appreciate what you said about kids, because and that's the other reason I have no interest in the current system or even voting in it, because you're still bombing kids. As long as you're bombing, I don't care whether the Democrats are bombing kids or the Republicans are bombing kids. If you're bombing kids, there's something psychopathically wrong.
Absolutely.
Not just as a person, but as a system. And if we have a system that can't seem to stop, it's addicted to killing people, there's no logical reason in my mind that we can be involved in that. I can't have anything to do with that. So that's why I like your system. And I'm certainly going to spend more time on the website looking around. I looked at it a couple times before, but now that you've explained it, I kind of understand a lot better. Now, this has already been used all throughout America and Canada as well, right?
Well, the technology's here, but we haven't we haven't connected the components, and that's what we're doing. That's what the blueprint is on our website. It very simply tells you you've already got a TV station that your community owns. Use it, change the format, stand up as a coalition, approach your city council, gather people, stand up, and build the database for community voting. And I mean, the corporations are using the technology. Hell, if you call any corporation on the planet, they say, hey, what's your ID number? What's your PIN number? What can I do for you? Do you want to pay your bill? I can pay my phone bill. I can pay my phone bill by hitting 4 numbers, and they take it out of my account and put it in their account without a problem at all.
Yeah.
So if people think that we can't vote by phone into a community database and have it fail safe, we can. That's not a problem. Right. But first, we have to have the desire to do that. Just like our founders had the desire, the people in America had the desire.
Yeah, the desire to stop being scammed, the desire to stop being played, and that's really what it is to me. Is that none of this technology is new. So
Yep.
what we're talking about here, you're not talking about new. This is technology that's been around for decades.
Right.
Nothing's new. It's been in the private sector and certainly the government sector for decades. What they've done, though, is they've created the perfect slaves. They've created the perfect people, or indoctrinated the perfect type of person that's very easy to govern. They're very naive. They're very gullible.
And we're very distracted. We're very distracted. You look at the TV, they're distracting with a lot of sex, a lot of violence, a lot of consumerism. Sports. Ooh, you got to care about the sports because, but if people cared about, their future, their kids' future, as much as they care about Notre Dame or Michigan or whoever, it's like, gosh, we could really do something. But these are all distractions. And there are a lot of people in America that are not distracted with politics. They don't buy that. That's why the majority of people in America do not vote. Because they don't buy it.
They know. Yeah. They
get
it. They know they're all liars. And Harsh mentioned something here. Harsh is certainly not a fan of the police, reading some of the things that he's writing. But, what I like police, and this is another good example. So if someone gets pulled over and whatever transpires, everybody likes to talk about, well, who did what wrong first, when, how, who. And they talk to the police this way. They didn't get out the car, didn't put the window down, whatever. And the person ends up shot or dead or something. Well, as a community, then you can step back and say, okay, instead of like protesting the police, you can put an issue forward. Should police be pulling people over for turn signals that aren't working, right? Why in the world are police doing that? We have cameras that can take a picture of your license plate and send you a message, even text message you. your light is out. You need to get this fixed within 3 days or you'll get it in the mail. So we have the technology to do that. We just don't do it. And so nothing changes because we blame the police. And really, to me, police aren't ever the problem. They've never been the problem. Our problem is policing. Our problem are the laws. If you write laws to send people with guns to stop people who have busted taillights, guess what? Eventually, they're going to get shot, especially in a nation that has increasing mental illness. The water's being poisoned, the food's being poisoned, and the jobs are becoming more and more scarce. The cost of living is going up. The incomes are going down. And you're going to catch a lot of people with bad days. And so people continue to have conflicts with the police, and the police have bad days too. And so we either blame the police or we start voting out the laws that make no sense. And to me, what makes no sense is if someone does something that's nonviolent, then you should not be sending a police officer with a gun to talk to them about anything. I they're very, and that's something I imagine, Dave, you're saying that can go right in the database where you can start making those decisions at the city, state, and hopefully one day at the federal level, that instead of just protesting and getting Sharpies out and running in the street, acting like a fool, yelling and screaming, and nothing changing because the politicians really don't care. They actually wrote the law, which I won't get into Black Lives Matter. It gets to me. I can't imagine that people are so lost that they don't really know who wrote the crime bill. I mean, and this case in point. So the crime bill was written. It ended up in this word that you don't like and I don't like, a large group or large population of minorities ending up in prison. And the law was drafted by Clinton and the Black Caucus. And people don't seem to realize the reason why Black lives don't matter and white lives don't either, because the police they're actually having more conflict, or they shoot more white kids than they Black kids. Number, not by percentage, but these are the things that they don't talk about in the mainstream media. And that is simply because nobody at the top of anything cares anything about you. Once you get to the top of something, you're going to sell out anybody beneath you.
That's right.
Out of this mess is to work together. We have to stop letting the people who, and this whole thing of race and racism, I go back to it because that is one of the greatest distractionary things they're breaking people with now, is you have a government that invented race and they use racism as a tool. And people can't seem to understand that you'll never go to government to give up their tool. They love their tools. Anything they can, if it's getting Christians to fight with Muslims, if it's getting Americans to have issues with Russia, whatever it might be, all these distractions you're talking about. Because if you're constantly fighting side effects, you'll never, ever deal with the root problem. And this is the whole pharmaceutical, and the pharmaceutical industry, another great one, right? Of course, most of my friends have issue with that. If we actually had a direct democracy and a tool like onevoicenow.org, you could simply pose the question: does the government have the right to force any compound into your system?
That's right. That's right.
They're debating whether or not things like MMR and whether or not they cause autism and whether or not adults should be forced vaccinated. You could put that in the system and you can decide for yourself instead of a politician who gets paid by the pharmaceutical industry.
That's right.
And decide for you. Another interesting one is the water, right? The more and more I was in a great conversation. They were talking about the water. The more and more they test the water, they're finding all the drugs in the water. All of the Ritalin, the Viagra, the statin drugs, it's not leaving the water. The water treatment systems aren't even designed to take out synthetic compounds. So they're designed to deal with biological, natural things that come out of human beings. They're not designed to deal with laboratory, monstrous synthetic experiments. And this is another thing you can vote on, right?
That's right.
But then there's being truthful and there's being honest, and we're not. Unfortunately, we're a people who trust way too much in a government that has never been honest. Never. Going back, both political parties all lie all the time. I was talking about 9/11 today. 9/11. I'm interested in 9/11 because we had some recent news. There's a new firefighter commissioner. I'm just giving some examples. A new firefighter commissioner in New York, standing up for the families of the firefighters who died at 9/11, the first responders, and saying they're calling for a new investigation. They're saying that they finally seen evidence that implicates or says that charges were placed. Another thing you can do with the direct democracy in this tool is you could say, you know what? We need a new investigation. And we need an investigation that focuses on eyewitness testimony about missiles hitting the Pentagon and the evidence that charges were placed in 9/11, in the building that didn't come down from fire, but came down from charges, as well as the person who bought the building. What, a month before 9/11 occurred, he got a insurance policy which was double the amount of what the building had to be insured for, which was such an unprecedented amount that it took 2 or 3 different insurance companies to put together a policy so this man could insure the Twin Towers. And a month after he did that, the buildings were attacked and completely toppled, and he collected insurance money. So I think things like this are ridiculous. And for me, I don't believe in conspiracy theory. I believe in business plans. And the people at the top are always trying to figure out how to make money off of us. And 9/11 was a murder. It was the crime scene at the Twin Towers. And if you have a few people who lost people in that building, and they're saying my loved one was murdered, and every president that goes into office said before they go in, we're going to release the files, but they get in, they don't release the files. That's another thing you could do with a direct democracy. You could have a bill that requires that all murder investigations at a national level, or that include more than 10 people, like these mass shootings, that it's all public record, that you can't hide any information, because these are our neighbors, our friends, and our families. And just because you're government doesn't mean you get the ability to hide who killed someone. All right, I went off and I said a million things. I mean, these are things that we can actually fix. Fixing the problem isn't getting a Sharpie and making a sign. It's actually starting a discussion around the topic and drilling down to the root cause problem and stitching in a bill that is an actual solution so it doesn't happen again.
Well, that's what it is. I mean, it's, we can talk about these problems till hell freezes over, but until we have the tools available for everybody to start, finding solutions, hey, we're just going to keep going deeper and deeper. And I mean, somebody mentioned this the other day. I've been doing this for a long time and I never really thought of it, but we have a top-down system, just like the mafia is top-down, and Monsanto and the pharmaceutical, they're all top-down. They all benefit the people at the top. But somebody said this the other day. They said the only thing that you build from the top down is a hole. And that's what America is now. It's just a hole. It's a $22 trillion that we know of hole that these guys have put on the backs of our children, our grandchildren, great-grand. They bankrupted them. And every year we voluntarily, I've got to fill out my taxes and say I owe this year and blah, blah, blah. Hey, let's raise the issue of whether income tax or sales tax going to state capitals or property tax is fair. Let's raise those issues. Let's debate those issues. Let's vote on those issues. Let's implement those issues. Let's keep our blood, our tax money, any taxes that we decide are fair or not, keep them in your community to pay for the things that you, the people, want. I mean, the shortest distance between 2 points is a straight line. And if you want to fix education in your community, or your environment in your community, or healthcare in your community, you don't send it to state capitals or the federal government to fix these problems. You keep it in your community, and that money will circulate in your community. And the reason that crime is so high right now, our communities are broke. They're flat broke. I bet in our community, this is where the University of Notre Dame is, by the way, one of the 5 wealthiest universities in the world. I'll bet you 80% of the people who live here don't have $1,000, because the corporations and the political crooks have taxed us and overcharged us so much that they've sucked all the money out of our communities. There's no cash. And our communities need cash so we can barter with one another. You know, it's like an engine needing oil or a body needing blood. If you don't have those things, it's not going to work. And that's why nothing's working in our communities. That's why these young people have turned to whatever they do. They end up in prison or whatever they're doing, because the pipeline from high school used to go to small business. Well, the local politicians and the federal and the state have raped small businesses, which literally built our communities and America. They've destroyed those. So now the pipeline goes to either prison or the military. Either one produces, pardon my French, screwed up kids. And we scratch our heads and say, gee, why are those kids are just bad. They're just bad. No, the system that they're trying to function in is bad. There's nothing there for them. You've killed everything. And that's why we've got to have one voice now, so we can, like you were saying earlier, let's talk about these laws. Let's talk about property taxes. Property taxes are totally unconstitutional. According to the original Constitution, the only people that were supposed to have a voice in America were property owners.
Yes.
Well, when they impose property taxes, we no longer own our properties. We lease our properties from the state.
Yep.
And it can't work. I mean, it's just diabolical. And
diabolical.
You have to.
I'm sorry, I'm in church. I'm just like, praise. You're diabolical. That's the right word.
It is. I mean, you can look at so many. I mean, our kids are graduating from schools that don't teach the basics of life. They don't teach them anything they can use in life. A lot of them even get out without reading and writing, and we're paying all this money, but you know where that money ends up? With a corporation. It's amazing when you look how they've screwed the people in your community. We, the people, pay for everything in education, the teachers, the buildings, the buses, everything. But we'll never own our education system, because what they do is they hand it off to a corporation. And that corporation is in charge of that money, and they pay the administrators. Like the superintendent here gets $200,000 a year to be a puppet for the state and the federal government. Then you got 9 or 7 goofballs on the school board that wouldn't say crap if they had a mouthful. And but the corporation owns it, and we have nothing to say about it. Think about healthcare. We could have community healthcare tomorrow. It's so simple. All we've got to do is be able to communicate, get organized, and realize that your local hospital, the people in your community pay for every brick, every doctor, every pharmaceutical, everything in that hospital. We pay for everything. And you know who owns that hospital? A corporation. And you know who profits from that corporation or from that hospital? The corporation. And all we've got to do is be able to get organized, communicate. We can have community health care tomorrow. Our health care dollars stay in our community. They pay for that hospital. They pay for the doctors who are on salary, not on commission like used car salesmen. They pay for the nurses. They pay for the surgeries. They pay for the pharmaceuticals, so we don't have to go through corporate drug dealers in our community like Walgreens and CVS and all that baloney. And it stays. And it's
corporate drug dealers. That's what they are. And they stand on the corner. Every corner in America, you got a CVS or Walgreens. You got a drug dealer on every corner. They just don't have a gold chain and
that, right.
Run from the police, but you still got a drug dealer on every corner.
That's right. And we can fix these problems, but like you said, the people that broke the country aren't going to fix it. It's up to we the people. But
and another thing I was gonna jump on. So yeah, above the corporations, another corporation, all that money, because America's being looted. We are literally being
absolutely
Federal Reserve banking, and people seem to know that money makes the world go round until election time. Then they get all silly, stupid, and start picking their heroes and people to represent them that never represent them. And above that is the Federal Reserve. I like to talk about the Federal Reserve a lot because people don't even know what it is. They think it's a branch of the U.S. government. It's not. The Federal Reserve is an international banking cartel owned by international banks. It's the worst kind of collusion that's ever happened. This is why I don't care anything about Mueller. It's a distraction. the worst collusion that's ever happened in the history of the United States. The greatest scam that's ever been perpetuated on the planet was central banking. And that's why the only 3 presidents that were killed in the United States they fought central banking. And that's another thing that could be raised as an issue in onevoicenow.org, which is central banking. Was it treason when the federal government, who's supposed to print the money, basically sold the rights to print U.S. currency notes to a group of international bankers in 1913, the Federal Reserve Act? And it was treason. It was something that they had no right to do. It was unconstitutional. And since then, pretty much corporations have completely taken over America. They've suspended the Constitution. But the point is, I won't run on about the Federal Reserve, but these are things when issues come up, when people have the ability at the grassroots level to talk about the actual problem and solve it, the problem gets solved. People individually are fantastic critical thinkers. America has some of the greatest critical thinkers on the planet. There's some of the most loving people on the planet. I don't want anyone to get me wrong when I say that I'm not really interested in saying a pledge of allegiance and bowing to a flag. It has nothing to do with Americans. Americans are some of the most beautiful people. I love my
absolutely.
But the issue is that in groups, we are really, really stupid. We lose our mind in groups. In groups, we just give up all logic, all critical thought, because we're always given fear of some other poor people, who don't have anything, and they didn't do this to us. We're all being oppressed. So, I like the idea of re-empowering people at the individual level to have these sort of discussions, not in groups. When you're in a group, you're going to suffer from groupthink no matter what, you attempt.
Well, this is, think about your brain. Your brain is made up of brain cells.
Hang on, let me do this real quick before you give that point, because people are asking, and I want to make sure that they know how to find you. So you actually, I've noticed you're doing live streams. This is David Frank. You can find him on my friends list. I don't know if you're on YouTube, but we'll put a link in here to one of your live streams. But you do live streams on a regular basis. And you guys can definitely follow David Frank. You absolutely should be. He has some great content. He has a great way of discussing things. He is a very level-headed, open-minded, and intellectual who knows how to talk through points. And so if you guys, because I know a few people.
You're making me blush, and don't tell my wife you said those things.
Look, I want people to follow you. I mean, it is important that we get behind all different types of people who can discuss things in a way that someone else can hear that they maybe can't hear from us. And so definitely, I want people to find you. But go on with your point.
What point was I making? Let's see. What the heck was I saying? I want to get back to the police for a second, because that's a big issue in America. And, I think the majority of the police really start out because they believe in what they're doing. Absolutely. And I think once they get in and go through all the hell that they have to go through to become police, I think they get in and go, whoa, look at what this, it's sort of like that movie Training Day. Ever see that with Denzel Washington? Yeah. Hopefully it's not all that bad, but it's bad. And the thing is, the people in our community need to define the role of the police. And that's what One Voice Now is. They work for us. We pay everything for them. And, like I'm 70, nobody's ever asked me what role I want my police to play in my community. Nobody's ever asked me that. And I have some strong opinions as to what I want them to do. But unfortunately, like so many other, ideas coming from our community, they just sort of go off into outer space and nothing gets done. But there's so many things that we can do. I just remembered what I was talking about earlier. Think of your community as a brain, and each one of us is a brain cell. In your brain, unless your brain cells are interconnected, they can't work. You can't function. And what One Voice Now is the connecting communication tool to connect those brain cells so that instead of having 7 goofballs on a school board, doing nothing to make education better, all of a sudden you might have 5,000 people in your community coming up with ideas to make education better, debating them, voting on them, implementing them, and changing your education system. The teachers have ideas. My wife has worked with special needs kids for the last 20 years. They've never asked her opinion one time. And she knows that the education system has to change. It's terrible.
Yeah.
We're going back to the days of slavery when it was against the law to teach slaves how to read and write. People forget those things. And our kids, they have all the equipment between their ears that they need. But, if you put them in a bad environment, nothing's going to happen for the better. And that's why we need One Voice Now, because it's the new electronic PTA, the Parent Teacher Association. And, whether it's healthcare or environment, there are people in your community right now that have great ideas for your environment, but nobody's listening because unless it makes money for the politicians, they don't care. They don't want to be bothered with it.
Well, they're not even interviewing. I mean, one thing I talk about a lot that someone mentioned down earlier is it's the environment that actually is what's making everybody sick. It's what's making the kids violent. It's the beginnings of crime is poverty. And so
absolutely.
Science. And I love what the professionals are saying. And I'm one of the biggest cheerleaders of the neuroscientists because they're making great strides in explaining the warrior genes and how we make people violent. We give them mental illness and they end up killing, murdering, raping, and doing things that we don't want in our communities. And the politicians don't care. They don't give two damn.
No.
Not going to make any money. They don't make money from well-adjusted, happy people who are being friendly and helping cut their grass. They make money from very violent, angry people who can't stand their neighbors that are rushing to them to take their rights because they don't want them. They're not cutting their grass. So they've got something they're playing their music too loud. They're calling the police. They're doing things that drum up money for corporations. And the other thing I was going to say on that, we mentioned policing. And so another issue with, well, again, the problem being policing, not police. Most police I know, they were the hero kids, right? They were the
That's
kids
right.
who always wanted to help. They were kids who, I want to help out. They wanted to be Superman. They wanted to be Batman. Once they figured out they couldn't fly and the Batman ring didn't work, and they became police. They want to help. But found out that wasn't what the job was for. Well, once you go to school, you get your degree, you had this dream of being a law enforcement officer, and you become one, and you find out it's a little more corrupt than what you like. But now you have a wife, you've got a house, a mortgage, and you got cars, and you've got kids. This is your career. You're going to do your job like everybody else. You're going to go to work and do your job. But in terms of policing, we could have a simple vote on whether or not all police should have lethal weapons.
Mm-hmm.
My, if Black Lives Matter or White Lives Matter or anybody got just a whiff of like the idea that they could stick into a database, well, maybe all police, like in the UK, should not have lethal weapons. We've had these rubber bullets and tasers for decades now. Why in the world do our public servants all carry weaponry that can murder us? It makes no sense. If the vast majority are responding to nonviolent situations, they're responding to situations where they don't need a gun to murder anyone, then they shouldn't have them. They can have a SWAT team. They can have a few with guns, because sometimes you do have people who lose their mind, and you want to make sure that an officer can respond to make sure that few people get hurt in a situation. But the idea that you send all of them out with guns is insanity to me.
That's right. That's right. And, that's why we have to have a voice, man. I mean, we can just go from one issue to another. None of them work. Yeah. I mean, we'll just keep on going because we need you could, like I said, humanity would not have progressed 1 inch without tools. If they hadn't figured out tools, we'd be back, hiding from dinosaurs, probably. It's just, and what we've got right now is the tool and the blueprint to use it in our communities. And I'm telling you, all of these issues can be resolved It's that collective consciousness. It's people coming together. You know, the old system is so divisive. You know, the political machine and the games they play, they can tell you what percentage of black people voted, what percentage of Hispanics, what percentage of women, Jews, all this other baloney. But you know what's really cool about One Voice now? You know how many black people vote on American Idol? Nobody knows because it doesn't matter. It always changes.
That's deep. That's
It,
powerful. Only the
yeah,
vote matters. That's power. I never thought about it that way. So
yeah.
I don't play the race game anyway. I'm done with that. I don't play race and religion.
No, it's just a political ploy.
I'm too old for this stuff. I'm too old to play these little silly games of divide and conquer. So it's interesting. Like only the vote matters on who wants to be a star. But when it comes to politics, well, they want to know because they need to know how to pander your group. They need to know who to lie to and maybe what to lie about. So they want to know all the who's of that. But the funny thing is when you're not groupable anymore, when you don't fit within the boxes that they created to control you, then they can't control you.
That's right. Absolutely.
If you're on your own, then there's no way they can kind of group you into a group thought category and then never do anything for you. You know? No. So yeah, but that's a fantastic example. I never thought about that because when you're texting in your vote for I don't know, The Walking Dead and, and they all got these votes. They don't ask you what's your race, religion, what's your this. They don't ask.
No, it doesn't matter. And it shouldn't matter. It only matters to ignorant people or people that are seeking power. And those people we now know are owned by the corporations. And we've got all these clues in front of us, but we just don't look at them. One of the clues that we have right now is the abbreviation for corporations is CORPS. The only thing that's missing is the silent E. Corpse. That's who's running America. That's who's running the world. And corpse is death. That's who's running our future. And, you know, one of the most intelligent people that I've ever known, he called me to his bedside as he was dying. And he said, Davey boy, he says, you got to promise me you'll never stop doing what you're doing. He says, you know, you're absolutely right. And he said, always remember, Davey boy, Vox Populi, Vox Dei. The voice of the people is the voice of God. That's my religion. And that's why we have this technology now that's come out of nowhere. You know, you can, and you know, I've asked different people. You know, we know who invented the light bulb and the phone and all of these different things. You know who invented the computer chip that allows all this to happen? Nobody knows. Nobody's ever told me. So, you know, all they've done is stole this technology from a higher intelligence that we all know exists today. There's got to be a higher intelligence than what's in Washington or state capitals or downtown. And
I agree with that. I agree with that because when you look at people who don't fit into the timeline, right? You look at people who knew things they shouldn't have known. Nikola Tesla, Albert Einstein, Edgar Cayce. The list goes on. Martin Luther. You can put a whole bunch of people in that category, but these people were so far ahead of their time. It wasn't even Christ. I mean, it wasn't even fathomable to tell people they got to love each other and take care of each other and care for. Like these were, I would say, you know, entity. Once again, you get people lost when you say certain.
Well, they're visionaries.
Well, visionaries. We'll leave it at
visionary.
But these were
visionaries.
Right.
What are visionaries?
All technologies that were all handed down, all concepts that were all handed down by all of our ancestors for the collective good of everybody. But
absolutely.
So that technology is only utilized for the power and greed of massive corporations. And this is why it has to stop. I wanted to address something Cheryl said just a second ago. She said it sounds like an improvement, which it absolutely is. It's not even a question. It's a step forward in evolution of our broken government that hasn't evolved in 500 years. But I wanted to address it. So she is an anarchist, I believe, based on what she said. I can't go back to the comment. She says she prefers no government. And I agree. I absolutely agree. I have to say that I am certainly, I've joined the mindset of the anarchist, but I also am still, I got a practical bone in me, right? How do you get from a place where you've got people running in the streets and they're killing and violent and raping and whatever because their government is starving them through artificial scarcity and creating monsters? You have to take steps sometimes. I'd love to just say there's no government tomorrow, but in the reality, it might take a generation, it might take two, it might take three before we weed out all these epigenetics and warrior genes that makes people so violent, and until they have the abundance of a Garden of Eden and everybody has their bare necessities so they can be bearable and they act like they have some sense. So what I wanted to say that this is that sometimes you have to step in the right direction. Like you don't always, because not everybody can envision a day when there's no government, and not everybody can envision that at the core foundation of the human being is love and concern when they're not pushed into violence. But we can start taking steps in that direction based on what you're talking about in terms of a hive mind and everyone has a voice. You start building a society that more people agree with, as opposed to a small group of global elite that tend to run everything.
Well, it belongs to us. It doesn't belong to the plantation owners, the New World plantation.
Absolutely.
And there's a third alternative. You know, there's a third alternative to what we have now and no government. The alternative is that we be the government, all of us equally, not just a few people. And remember, you know, I mean, I don't really know what, you know, I think different people have different definitions of anarchy. But remember, you got 320 million people here all trying to figure out how to live together without, you know, killing each other. And you need rules. Now, you can't have 320 million people living on a piece of land without rules. And my goal is to get back to the original rules, from the original lawmaker, and that's the Ten Commandments. For me, those are the morals that they were thrown out back in 1960. For your viewers that don't know this, 9 people on the Supreme Court. I got to plug my phone in. 9 people on the Supreme Court. 9 people on the Supreme Court back in 1960 decided God was wrong, and because before 1960, this country used to be closed down one day a week on Sunday, and you know, wasn't only good for our society, but it was good for the planet because it gave the planet an opportunity to breathe. And so they threw that commandment out. When they threw when they threw that out, they threw all the other morals out too. And all of a sudden, lying is fine, and adultery is fine, and killing is fine, and stealing is fine, and you know, not respecting your parents is fine, and working 7 days a week is fine, and making you believe that in false gods like the next president, you know, the next god to come along, you know, who you're going to vote for, and excuse me. And so they threw all the morals out. And ever since then, we've been in a moral country. And right after they did that, we went to Vietnam and started killing innocent people. And we've been doing that ever since. And the nice thing about One Voice now is we have an opportunity to bring the morals back. And it has nothing to do with religion whatsoever. If you read the commandments, it does not mention religion. It does mention God, but all God to, like me, is the all-knowing. And as far as I'm concerned, the all-knowing is what we all know. And my goal is to bring all of those things that we know together so that they can be heard and debated and voted on and implemented. And that's basically it. Because until we have that, we're in a moral country, and we will never change until, you know, we put the tools in place. Jesus said, I didn't come to change the laws. He said, I came to fulfill the laws, meaning the 10 commandments. And if we just start treating each other the way we would want to be treated, and I know I don't want to be lied to, and I don't want anybody committing adultery, and I don't want to, and blah, 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 all of a sudden we don't need to spend all our money on the judicial system that feeds the lawyers. All we need to know is 10 things in our lives so that people understand what the morals are. But there's just too many people that are being programmed by the television and the internet that, oh, killing's fine. Look, that's normal. And look at that, look at that woman with two guys in bed with her. That's normal. And, all the other abnormal things that society is doing right now. And
it was a moral decay. I mean, it was this social decay of our country, and I kind of agree with Nikki King.
These are not religious laws. These are not religious laws.
Yeah. So I mean, and what we actually, well, I guess the way I think about it, there are probably 3 commandments that everybody on this planet probably agrees with, 99.999%, and that is don't kill. Don't steal. Might be another one that's out there. It slips my mind. But it doesn't even have to be all 10. And they're not religious laws per se. Right. So they're not laws based in religion. They're laws based in moral character, right? They're laws
that's right. The moral.
Natural laws, right? They're natural laws. The law of how do you get 7 billion people to live together on a rock of depleting resources,
right,
that only have a finite amount of time to either get off of the rock or come up with a different model for living, and that is respect, love. And the only way you can, you do have to have guiding rules. So I definitely agree that we have to be guided into that way. We have 500,000 laws on the books, and we can't delete them all, not right away. I don't believe in any of them. I think they're all ridiculous.
I'm with you.
The people who wrote them are ridiculous, but we have to start to head in the right direction. There are a lot of people we got to love first, right? There are a lot of people we have to love before we get to some sort of a anarchical, no government situation. There are a lot of people who are born starving in really, really bad areas, in these trailer parks, in these ghettos, and these barrios, people who we need to descend on communities with food, kindness, love.
Absolutely.
And
we got the military, and we've got churches, and we've got a lot of people to do that.
To do it, and I'm glad you mentioned the military and the police, and even our lovely CIA and Homeland Security and FBI. All of these unconstitutional private armies are made up of kids who wanted to be heroes. They're made up of people who wanted to help. Yeah, you got some nuts in there too, don't get me wrong. But these are people who wanted to be heroes. And if you give them somewhere to go be heroic, to make sure that kids in America can get to school without, being abused by a gang of whatever, people, they would do it. They want to be cheered. They want to be heroes again. Police want to pull up in a neighborhood and, like when we were kids, and have all the kids run up to the police car.
That's right.
Can I touch your belt? Can I do this? Can I see your gun? No, you can't see my gun, kid. But they want that again. But we get there if
they were respected, not feared.
Right. They were respected. They were loved. Most times they came from the communities that they policed, so they knew everyone. They were allowed to be professionals. I like the idea of police, teachers going back to being professionals, doctors even, right? Like these industries, they're all broken, and they need us to write new laws or new guidelines to let them go back to being professionals. I want the principals to run the school. I want the teachers to run their classrooms again. I want the Department of Education out with their central point of failure and management. It's the same failure structure with representative government, with police. I want them to make their own decisions again. I want them to be able to say, well, I know Johnny, and I know his family, and I know where he came from. His parents just got a divorce. He's going through things. I know that's why he's got this cannabis, or he's drinking and driving. Listen, slap on the wrist, no mandatory minimums. You need to take your butt home. I know what's going on. Like that empathy again, letting police be human again. But right now, they have that central point of failure. Same thing with doctors in the pharmaceutical industry, right? Doctors aren't healers, they're chemists. Right now, they're just prescribing all the drugs. They're being told what to do, or they lose their licenses through the American Medical Association. I want them to go back to being professionals. So these are all the things that direct democracy can allow us in freeing our professionals to go back to utilizing their profession to help society as opposed to just making an income to pay a mortgage. So I'm going to leave it there. That's the last thing I have to say, Brother David. You want to go ahead and give us some closing statement or finish up? So once again, just so everybody knows, let me put your name back up here. This is Brother David Frank. You can follow him. He does live streaming. He's got a great Facebook page. He representing onevoicenow.org, which is a software, a tool, a website that allows direct democracy to function, wherein you stop outsourcing your ability to vote on issues and you actually vote on them yourself. David?
I couldn't have said it any better. You just, I mean, it was, you know, the problem, Gerard, is it's too simple. Everybody thinks we got to have all these special people, you know, like, you know, that have all these special answers, and they don't exist. You know, hopefully we're going to evolve to the point where we quit looking for the needle in the haystack. We quit believing in Santa Claus and the Easter Bunny and the Wizard of Oz and start. But Michael Jackson told us exactly what to do. Look into the mirror. There's your answer. But stand up with a plan as a community, because Dave Frank can't do this. The mainstream media will not cover Dave Frank, because you know where all that campaign finance money ends up? Mainstream media. So when Dave Frank says, "Yeah, well, who needs any of these idiots? We can be voting on issues affecting our lives ourselves." Well, mainstream media won't cover it. But I'm fortunate that I'm on my brother's page here, and thank you for allowing me. And thank you for the great work that you do. You've been really educating people on what's really going on. And all I'm trying to do is come behind you with a plan. And the plan is to give everyone one voice now. It's not about Dave Frank. Dave Frank does not have the answers. Dave Frank has the tool for every community to start finding the answers. Remember, Henry Ford could not have built the first Model T before he built the tools to build the Model T. And that's what One Voice Now is. And, you know, years ago, we had a thing called a Tea Party. Well, it's time for a new Tea Party, but this time the T stands for technology. And you have the technology. Everybody in America has access. If you don't have a phone, you can borrow your friends, whatever. And everybody has access to it. And I remember when I first became an activist, I went down to Birmingham and I met a guy by the name of Reverend Abraham Woods, who was heading the PGA boycott back then, because the PGA was stopping at country clubs that were still, you know, prejudiced. And I went down there, and he ended up introducing me to Dr. Joseph Lowry, who had headed Martin Luther King's group. But I was ahead of my time. But my point of this is there was a yellowed piece of newspaper in a frame, and it said, "The world is waiting for America to lead." And I'm asking everybody that's watching this to get busy in your own community and tell people that care about America. There are activists there right now. You know, everybody's on to something different. I need you to contact them, send them the onevoicenow.org website. There's some other links on that website. We have a video page with videos that simply explain how easily this can be done. But we need the same thing that Dr. King needed. He needed people to stand up with him. And we need people to stand up with us and nonviolently, just like Dr. King did, stand up and say, we want one voice now. Look at people in Venezuela and Puerto Rico, and they're all revolting, but they don't know what they want. They don't know what they want. All on
America is what you just said. They're waiting on their brothers and sisters in America to get a clue. They're waiting on the people who unfortunately stole all the resources from all over the world to finally use the internet, do the research, realize we've looted all of these continents, and we can go free our brothers and sisters everywhere. We have resources to do it. We are in this critical, lucky place before they collapse our currency, where America could see to everybody's needs. We literally could feed the entire world from the state of Rhode Island alone with vertical grow towers. We have the money, we print the money, we have the technology, we have the know-how. We we at this point in time, and this is where it does come to me to, I don't want to say religious, but certainly a spiritual perspective. I was given a mission by who I would call my God to feed the world, to love the world, to heal the world. And if anybody made any sort of agreement with Mother Nature, Jesus Christ, Muhammad, or whoever you made that agreement with, we actually can do it.
Absolutely.
And so the whole world is waiting for us to fix violence all over this planet. And we can do it any day we choose. But step one is you got to put Americans back in the driving seat, controlling their nation. Right now, you don't have that. So,
No.
All right. Let me wrap it up. I had to get running. All right.
Okay, can I say this last thing?
Go for it.
A lot of people don't realize that the only thing that got us out of Vietnam were the celebrities. And celebrities have a following. And One Voice Now needs a celebrity. So if you know of anybody, hey, I'm just a regular guy. I mean, I can't sing, I can't dance, I'm not good looking, nothing. So we need a celebrity, a football player, basketball player, a musician, somebody. So if you know of anybody, I'm asking you, please send our information to them. onevoicenow.org. If anybody needs me, once again, I'm David Frank. My phone number is 574-876-7306. We can do this. America is ripe. It's ready to go one way or the other. I suggest communication. You don't want to live in a world with violence. If you want to know what it's going to look like, turn on the TV, look at Venezuela eating anything they can find. Crime is out of control, and nobody's going to stop it. And they're waiting for America to lead, and we can do it with One Voice Now, I promise you. So, hey, Gerard, I love you, man. Appreciate you letting me be on your program.
Anytime. You got to come back. We'll finish the discussion. There's so much more we could talk about, brother. You have a great day. And everybody else, thank you for joining.